Hi guys, and welcome back to my videos. My name is Dr. Rosna, and welcome to our AMC journey videos. So, in the previous video, we had discussed about the entire process of booking your MCQ examination. I didn't want to exceed it beyond the time, so that's why I decided to make this into a separate video. So, today we're going to talk a little bit more about what the MCQ examination is all about. So, this is just going to be a brief outline video, and I intend to talk a little bit more about my preparation in another video. So this is going to be a short video about what the MCQ examination is all about. So if you guys have any doubts about what I say or any other doubts that you want clarification about, please do comment them in the chat box or in the comment box so I can read them up and maybe prepare another video for you guys. Okay, so let's talk about AMC MCQ examination. Right, so the AMC MCQ examination is a CAT exam, meaning it's a computer adapted testing. As I had mentioned in my previous video, this is conducted by the Pearson VUE for the AMC. So it's a computer adapted testing or an online examination, okay? And we have 3.5 hours for the exam. And the good thing is that you do have a timer included, unlike the clinical exam where you do not have a timer and the 8 minutes for each station is in your mind for the clinical examination. But for the MCQ examination, you do have the timer clock that starts running when you start your examination. Now, it has got 150 questions, of which 120 are scored and 30 are non-scored, or they are the pilot questions. AMC always have few pilot questions. It's just to check how we answer them. And if they get a good review about that question, they might include it into the scored pool later. So remember that the 150 questions would be a mix of 120 scored and the 30, the non-scored, are the pilot questions. Now, the very good thing about AMC examination, there is no negative marking. So you do have to attempt all questions. The thing is, 150 questions for 3.5 hours, at a glance, you have enough time. But trust me, guys, there can be time issue for some of you guys who might be like me to read the question, to think about it and still be confused about what the answer could be, because AMC can really trick you up with the options and they can create really confusing questions. So you might think and you might lose time. So be very careful about that. Although we might think 3.5 hours is enough for 150 questions, there are chances that few people can run out of time. So be really careful and practice your time there. And although with the good thing that there is no negative marking, the issue here is you cannot review your items. Like once you do the answer, you press an option, you press next, you move to the next question. You cannot come back and review your items, right? You cannot come back. You move forward, you are in the next question. You cannot come back, review your items, or change the answer that you once put for the question. Now, the AMC MCQ is an A-type MCQ, meaning you have a question, you have 5 options, and you need to choose the best option from these 5 options that you have. And they are really, they know the way how to confuse the students, confuse us to, not give the right answers. So they can give you really confusing options. That that takes time for us to decide what the answer could be. So you need to practice and practice, do a lot of questions to have the grasp about how to do MCQ questions for AMC MCQ examination. Now, one other thing is 50% questions would be from a previously set calibrated pool of questions, right? And only the rest 50% would be some new questions. So that's why doing recalls are always good, because 50% of the questions would be from the previous questions or the recall questions. So recalls are good, not to buy up the recalls, but to get an idea about the topic. I will tell you more about the recalls in a second. So this is just the same thing that I told you guys. You have 150 questions and you need to answer every single question to move forward, and you cannot come back to review. So AMC has just made it clear that each question has to be answered before the further questions are administered. That is, a candidate is not permitted to not answer a question and progress to the next question, and so may not go back to the unanswered questions, right? So once a question has been answered, you cannot go back to the previous question and change the response, and you cannot move to the further question without answering a question also. So it's just making sure that you answer every single question. Now, answering every single question is particularly important because if you do not answer all the 150 question, AMC cannot analyze all this. See, it's a computer adaptive testing, and they cannot properly analyze you if you have not attempted all the 150 questions. The way how AMC assess you is quite peculiar way. So the thing is, you get your first question, and it's based on your difficulty level of the questions that you're answering, that they give you the next question, right? So you got a intermediate level of difficulty question, and if you weren't able to answer that, the next question you're going to get is going to be a more easier question. Okay. And if you couldn't answer that, they're going to give you more easier questions, right? Second scenario, you came in, you started your questions, you got an intermediate level difficulty question, you were able to answer that right, they'll give you a more tougher question. You answered them also right, they're going to give you a higher difficulty questions, and they're going to increase the difficulty the more difficult questions you're answering, right? So this is basically the way how AMC is assessing you. They're not going to assess you with the total number of correct questions you answered, because you might think, okay, I got all difficult questions and she got all easy questions, she scored more than me. No, it's not like that. So they're going to scale you on how much difficult questions you answered. A doctor who is answering all easy questions is not going to be scored equally with you. Even if she got all 120 questions correct, you got all 120 questions correct, you guys are going to be marked differently because you answered more difficult questions. So the entire testing of this examination is about how much difficult questions you were able to answer. Right? It's not the number of correct questions or the number of correct responses you gave. It's about how much difficulty level questions that you were able to answer. And one important thing is you need to do all the 150 questions, because if you are not able to attempt 150 questions, the AMC examination, they may lead to an insufficient information for a reliable ability to determine, and therefore a result on the AMC adaptive scaling. What happens is the examination result can be recorded as either fail or even an insufficient data to obtain the result. So one advice from my side would be, like, even if you feel you are running out of time, you have some 15 questions left, you need to attempt all the 15 questions somehow in, and before your timer runs out. So to be honest, in my case, I had a few questions left and my timer was running out really fast. I couldn't manage my time that much, but I made sure I attempted every questions. I just scanned through the questions and I just, somehow put it onto some options and I moved to the next questions. I made sure I completed my 150 questions before my timer ran out. So make sure that even if you are running out of time, please do not sit with the same question, reading and thinking. Somehow finish the 150 questions, because even if you answered all the other questions right, if you do not complete the 150 questions in total, you can have insufficient data to obtain a proper result, and it might come out as fail. So we don't want that. So make sure you attempt all the 150 questions. Now, these are the topics that AMC assesses you for. So they're basically checking if you are having the knowledge equivalent to an Australian medical graduate, right? So they're going to check you for your medicine. They call it in different terms. They say the adult health medicine. Adult health can be surgery, orthopedics. They check the women's health or the obstetrics and gynecology that we have, the child health or the pediatrics, and the mental health or the psychiatry, which includes all ages, including children. And you also need to know about the population health and ethics. So that's basically the community medicine that we have. And also ethics will be a little bit different because Australian ethics is a lot different from what we see in our country. So you will have to have a deep dive into the ethics. The rest of the topics are just all the same that we study in our MBBS curriculum, but a few guidelines might be different with the Australian guidelines. So these are basically the topics that we will need to cover for giving the AMC MCQ examination. So this is the blueprint for your examination. Your medicine accounts for about 30% of your questions. Your surgery is 20%. Your women's health or the obs and gyn, your pediatrics, your psychiatry, and your population health with the ethics, they're all accounting just for 12.5% each. So on the back of your mind, you need to have the idea that medicine has got the maximum weightage of the topics, right? Now, as I mentioned, they're not going to check you on the specialist level, how much you are at their specialist level. No, They're going to check you if you are equivalent to a medical graduate of Australia. So all these topics that I told you about, they're going to check you for whether you know the disease processes, the entire pathophysiology, the pathogenesis of that condition. If you know the clinical features, they're going to give you a lot of clinical scenarios. I'll make another video discussing a few questions and telling you how you have to learn the, how you have to study the MCQ questions, the way of answering MCQ questions. So because they're all clinical scenarios, you need to know the clinical features in order to diagnose them, in order to think about the best investigations, right? You need to know about the investigations and also the findings in that particular condition. You need to know the differential diagnosis of that particular scenarios, and you also need to know the management, both with the investigations and the treatment. And they would be asking you like, what is the most appropriate treatment, or what is the best initial treatment? So the most appropriate treatment needn't always be the best initial treatment, right? So they can confuse you in every possible way. So you need to be very keen in reading the question and answering exactly what they've asked for. Okay, so these are the different areas that you need to cover when you are studying each different topics. So this is something that I read through when I went into the AMC MCQ guidebook. So they are aware of the recall questions that are being circulating, but what they mention is true. These circulating recalls can be incorrect. They aren't the exact recall that they got for the exam, because it's not humanly possible to remember and recollect the entire question, entire options out of the 150 questions and tell you. What they will be telling you in recalls will be part and parcels of the question. It might get mixed up, it might be difficult. One question that you get can be twisted up when another person recalls it up, right? So do not blindly trust any recalls. Recalls are basically to understand what topics that they are interested in, so that you can learn those topics, every aspect of those topics, so that whatever question you get from that topic, you'll be able to answer them, right? So recalls are not to blindly by heart the questions, but they are just to understand and learn the topics completely, so you can answer whatever questions that they ask from that topic, right? Okay, guys, so that was just an overview of what the MCQ examination is and how it is conducted. I'll just make another video about my preparation, and I'll also make a short video about how you need to do the MCQ questions, how to rule out each options out of the 5 options that you have and conclude that this could be an answer. So how to do a A-type MCQ question. So I'll talk about all this in another video. So until then, bye-bye. And if you have any doubts, please do mention them in the chat box or the comment box, so I can come up with another video clarifying your doubts. Okay, guys, take care. Bye-bye.